Oh shoot! I should. Let me. I'll be live, but I'm gonna go back to my Twitter and promote this so people.
Sweet.
The 50-yard line.
It is 4 p.m. Eastern. We have completed the NFL's regular season. It is on to Wild Card Week. Does it get more exciting than this? I think not. I love Wild Card Week so much. We have our guys Donnie, RightSide, and the Whale Capper joining us. And it is time to break down these wild card games. Donnie, RightSide, my man, how are you on this Thursday afternoon?
Feel a little bit sad after week 17 because the regular season is over, and then you kick up in the wild card round, and then the big boys come out to play next weekend. I'm excited for this, Jimmy. Good to be here.
It is great to be here. We also have the Whale Capper joining us on this Thursday afternoon from Los Angeles. Whale Capper, how you doing?
Jimmy, happy New Year's to you and yours. Donnie, happy New Year's. Fantastic to be back and get after it with these playoff handicaps, man. Best wild card weekend that I can remember in the last 4 or 5 years, and it's not close. Really not a stinker on the card. A lot of great angles to mine here, and a lot of uncertainty across the playoff picture. It's kind of wide open this year, don't you feel?
I definitely do feel like it's wide open this year, and there's a lot of cappers who want to hear who we like for the Super Bowl as well. Talk a little bit about futures. Shout out to all the cappers in the chat. We got Jeff Billings, Gerald Jones, Dan Kelly, Adam Olin, Tasha, Brandon Cummings, Doug Barnhouse, Deer Slayer, Ski in the house. Thank you guys for joining us. Yes, speaking of futures, I sent my futures in. My futures are in. And it was just a rough season all around. And these futures are all one unit. So even though I spent, I bet 400 on a couple of them, and the ones that lost were 100 in a unit situation, they were 5-5, but with some heavy juice on some of them. So losers, Bills over 6.5 wins, cash. Dolphins under 5.5 wins, cash. Le'Veon Bell under 1,125.5 rush yards, cash. Eagles over 9.5 wins, loss. Rams under 10.5 wins, cash. Eagles win NFC East, cash. And then Falcons over 8.5 wins, loss. Falcons win NFC South, loss. Falcons win NFC, loss, and Falcons win Super Bowl. Terrible stuff. This was a rough season for me, and I still have some futures left. I have the Eagles to win the NFC and Super Bowl 8-1, 14-1. I'm not confident there, but Chiefs to win the AFC plus 375. Chiefs to win the Super Bowl at 8-1. Saints to win the NFC at plus 250, and Saints to win the Super Bowl at 5-1. Rafa, my man, could you please put up our record on picks given out on this show and on our Twitter? Thank God for you guys, because I was awful. I was just unbelievably awful. But the futures did move my average line. I get a plus sign. There's one plus sign, but it's just from average line. Horrible. Just a disgrace of a season for me. But there is still time to fix this. And let's start hammering these games right now. Starting with Saturday, Bills, Texans. Texans opened up at -3. It was -3 across the board. Now it's strictly 2.5, although there still is a 3 at Bovada at plus 105. This total has shot up. Opened at 41.5. Now at 44. Shot up 2.5 points. And we've talked all year about Josh Allen's accuracy. He made strides this year. There's no getting around it. 3,089 yards, 20 touchdowns. Then the Bills have the league's second best scoring defense, third best unit in terms of yards allowed. But the big story is J.J. Watt putting on his superhero outfit and coming back to save the day. J.J. Watt returns. Deshaun Watson, 67% of his passes, 3,852 yards, 26 touchdowns. DeAndre Hopkins looked great all season long. Will Fuller is heading in the right direction to play. According to Bill O'Brien, we expect him to play. It's the Texans defense that's the problem in this matchup, if there is one. Texans defense gave up 388.3 yards per game in the regular season. Will they have answers for Brown, Beasley, Singletary, Gore? Maybe with Watt in the lineup. Let's get it started. Donnie, RightSide. First game on Saturday. Bills, Texans.
Yeah, it's nice. We get some time to bat around all 4 of these games as opposed to, spend like a minute or two and then quickly move on. It's kind of fun to see the dissection of this game because when you look at the Buffalo Bills, you sort of have that adage like, well, their offense really can't carry him. The defense is really good. We'll see what happens. And Josh Allen, he will miss 4 to 5 wide open guys streaking down the field. But every once in a while, he's going to hit those to keep the games interesting. And then you flip it over to Bill O'Brien, which is always one of those coaches I certainly don't want to put my money behind, especially when they are favored. But then again, we're in the playoffs. We're at the home team. Houston has done fairly well in this home spot, specifically usually sitting there at 4:30 p.m. on a Saturday, rightfully so. But this is a good game. And the reason I actually like this game a lot more than a couple other ones, both of these teams had de facto bye weeks last week. They're coming in completely healthy, and you're right, Jimmy. You see J.J. Watt coming back. He's not going to be that much of a force that you usually see him in, but they're going to pick and choose their spots. They'll let him rush the passer, but he's not going to be lining up in the defensive tackle position on first down, taking on double-team blocks, trying to stretch out that pectoral muscle. That's not going to happen, but it's nice to get that added boost. And yes, if anybody follows me on Twitter, no doubt in my mind you will get an unbelievable Instagram post somewhere around Friday at midnight where he's already at the stadium and dressing in his uniform, getting ready for the game. You also see him run through the tunnel with a GoPro and an American flag in one hand. And then after the game, if they lose, you'll get that bone-crushing lost Instagram tweet from J.J. Watt saying he apologized to the city of Houston, and he's already in the weight room starting ready for the next season. But getting back to the football game overall as is, I like it, and I'll start it off here by saying I think the Buffalo Bills are really live in this football game, but I don't know if they have enough to get over the hump on the road, and I would like the Buffalo Bills if they were playing outdoors in a cold environment with a lot of wind in this game. I'll start with that, Jimmy.
Well, it is a very good start. We talk about the advantage of a bookie, a local bookie, compared to what we can get at these offshore books, and the only advantage I see with a bookie, like a local bookie, is future bets, and it's a credit based thing, so you can make enormous amounts of future bets and then put yourself in a terrible hole, or give yourself great riches. Flash wanted me to put in some future bets for him on the Houston Texans a few weeks ago, and I did to win the AFC. I did, and I also jumped in with him. I thought if he's going to go in, I went in with him. So I do have some futures on Texans, and I think I'm just going to stay off this game. But the total of this spot interests me very much, and looking at this total shoot up. And Whale Capper has made a move on the total, and I find it very interesting, and I can't wait to hear his breakdown on it. Whale Capper, Bills, Texans.
Yes. Great way to start off the week. Usually the Texans game is kind of a stinker. It's kind of, the early Saturday wild card game is kind of an afterthought. But this is maybe one of the better matchups of the week. And it's wild too, because I've probably spent more time on this handicap than any of the other 4 games, because there are so many very important pieces who are on each injury report that I think have legitimate impact on how this game plays out, both from a side and total standpoint. I thought that the opener on the side was fair. Houston -3 is about where I handicap this game. But I don't get why this total was bet up from 41.5 to 44, especially 44 being a key number. And now you can get under at like a reasonably fair price. I got -102 on under 44 today. And I feel like this was a gift, because really you're talking about 2 teams that don't have a ton of playoff experience. You're talking about a quarterback in Josh Allen, who, as Donnie nailed it, he is going to airmail a bunch of passes to that is going to fly right over wide open guys. That is going to happen a handful of times during this game for sure. And I think this is going to be a very closely contested field position, executing special teams kind of a plays is going to be what decides this. This isn't going to be a shootout where both teams clearly get it to 20 points. If we get an average performance out of Josh Allen, I'm seeing 23-20 here, Houston. But being that this is his first ever playoff start, being that a lot of pressure will be on him, and then you're integrating pieces like J.J. Watt back into the defense for the Texans. I think this does set up very well for the Texans to get the win, move on to the next round, and I think this comes in well under the total of 44. A couple of pretty important pieces that are worth mentioning here. Will Fuller has been kind of the difference maker, kind of the guy that the key piece that puts the whole puzzle together for the Texans offensively, and it looks like he will be out there. The pass defense, however, for the Buffalo Bills is out of this world good. Like, they are legitimately good. They haven't played anyone good. They're tough. Like, they've had one of the easier schedules in all of the NFL this year. But they still have outstanding singular performances by Trey White. I think he can do a very solid job one-on-one versus DeAndre Hopkins, which means you're going to have an opportunity to let safety help over the top with Will Fuller. So even if he's out there, I don't think we're going to see home run plays from the Houston offense. I think the best way to attack the Buffalo Bills defense is to run it kind of up the middle, do a little bit of a power running scheme. I think we're going to see a lot of usage from Carlos Hyde. I think we're going to see a lot of short passes to the likes of Daniel Fells and the other kind of the tight end receiving crew. This is going to be, a grinded out game for the Texans offensively. And if they can generate some sort of a lead, put the Bills a little bit on their heels, then I can entirely see them play keep away in the second half and they're great at this. They can really milk that clock. They can really make these drives. You look down, third quarter, middle of the third quarter, and next thing you know, 6 minutes are gone, and here we are sitting at 17-10 heading into the fourth quarter, and 44 is most of the way home. That's basically my angle coming into this one, and I feel pretty strongly that the under comes home.
Gerald Jones says like Houston under and Philly under. Alex Ramirez likes Texans and the under. Brandon Cummings like Houston to win in the 7 to 12 point range, which is at plus 460 at Sugar House right now. Some people think this is going to be tight. Some people think the Texans are going to pull away. And nobody's saying over, even though this total went from 41.5 up to 44. Donnie, RightSide, what do you think of Wales' look on the under?
You know what? I actually sit a little bit on the opposite side of that, but not by much, because I think he brings up a lot of really good points in this football game. Because when you see playoff football, it's the same thing, Jimmy, when you equate it to hockey. You get into the playoffs. You have to take somebody's head off to get a penalty in this game. And I think that's going to be the same exact type of way. But when we look at the Houston Texans overall in defense, they are getting a little bit healthier in the secondary than what they were a couple weeks ago. And that's a positive. If we take a look, just, one thing, I like to look sometimes at Pro Football Focus where they list like the defenses. They have Houston ranked 24th overall out of the NFL in defense. If we look at some likewise competition that is going up against it, and even when you take a look at the Buffalo Bills from an offensive perspective, against the Giants, now this is being the Buffalo Bills, when you have defenses that are ranked in the 20s or lower in the NFL, they scored 28 points against the Giants, 21 versus the Bengals, 31 versus the Dolphins, 24 against the Redskins, 16 against the Browns, which was their low point, and then again 37 points in their second go-around with the Miami Dolphins. But also, when you look at the Buffalo Bills from an offensive perspective, it's hard to try to say, what can they actually be and what have they done? Because if you just look outside of the Jets game, which they played their second string, third string guys in a rainstorm, you want to remove that. But the previous 5 games, they went up against Denver, number 5th overall defense, Dallas, number 9, Baltimore 14, Pittsburgh 2, and New England 3. You're not going to get a lot of high scoring strikes. I did see Capper John in there saying they might go up tempo. I don't know how much that suits the Buffalo Bills to actually go up tempo. That's not really what they're built for. But you're going to get a game in a controlled environment. There's no windy conditions. You're going to be playing in a dome. It should be a fun game to go over. I lean a little bit more towards the Buffalo Bills scoring more against Houston's defense. And I would say, Houston is going to light up the Buffalo Bills on offense. And as Whale Capper was talking, Ian Rappaport retweeted out, Will Fuller's been downgraded and to be a long shot to play. So if you're looking from a total perspective, that's the guy that stretches the field. Now, all of a sudden, if you're the Buffalo Bills secondary, you say, Tre'Davious White, get on Nuke Hopkins, see if you can battle it out to somewhat of a stalemate. And, Kenny's still banged up, but you don't have that. I always like to call it the 3-wheel motion at wide receiver where they can hit you from all angles. That downgrade there is going to be significant. The Buffalo Bills are going to scheme and get some pass rushing ability and get some, obviously, pass rush against Deshaun Watson here. So this is going to be a fun game to look at. I think you might get a little bit more points, but if you're looking from a total perspective, I think the Buffalo Bills might be doing a little bit more scoring here.
Well, that's what Jeff Billings is saying in the chat. He likes the under, but he likes the Bills team total over. RB Fern says wildcard weekend. Give me the team with a better defense and coaching. So RB Fern backing these Bills. Gerald Jones says only can take Watson at home at 2.5. Very, very interesting spot here. Jojo Rich says it's a pass for me. And at this point, for me, I've not made a move on Bills Texans, but I do have a little bit of equity on the Texans in the AFC. That is the Bills Texans. Whale Capper, if you had a free play to make on a side here at 2.5, it sounds like you'd be leaning towards the Texans. Is that true?
Yeah, and mostly just on the basis of we haven't seen Josh Allen do it in the playoffs, and it's always tough to expect that you get your best ever performance the first time you're on this big of a stage, especially when you're on the road. Although the absence of Fuller makes me feel a lot less confident in the Texans getting a 3-point win or better.
Yeah. And if Fuller's going to be announced out, maybe that goes down to 2 even. Slipknot in the house, one for the money, ready to get to work. Let's do just that. Talking about these exciting wildcard spots. Here is another one. Titans, Patriots. Loved seeing the Patriots slip up against the Fish. To add more storylines to this game, New England opening up at -5. That's where they stand right now at -5. But if you look, it's moved. It was at 4.5 for from the 30th all the way into New Year's Day, and then back up to 5. That's at Pinnacle, the line history at Pinnacle. And that's one of the great parts of this SBR odds page, sportsreview.com, where you can see when the lines moved. 41 Fahrenheit, light rain, 3 miles per hour. I guess you'd almost wish this game was played on Sunday when there's going to be snowy conditions. The rain is quite light here once it gets to 6 o'clock in Foxborough. New England hasn't lost a postseason game at home since 2012. Finished with the NFL's second best unit defensive or offensively in terms of points per game offensively. And we talk so much about their offense looking bad all year. Still 7th best in terms of points per game. The question is, will the Patriots defense be able to shut down A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, and Derrick Henry? And you have to think that maybe not shut down, but certainly slow down. This total opened up at 43.5. It's now at 44 or even 44.5. I know Flash is very interested in the over in this game. Titans, Patriots, Donnie RightSide, take it away.
Yeah, let's start. What a great game here. And I got to tell you, I'm really torn on a couple different avenues in this football game. And the reason being is, yes, Tom Brady has slowed down a lot. I understand it. But you're still dealing with the single best coach of all time. They're at home, and the game is less than a touchdown. So theoretically, if you think New England's going to win the football game, they're probably going to cover the 4.5 or 5 at that point. And that's the thing you want to play with. But also, if this game, let's just say they did flip it over, and forget about what the weather's supposed to be on Sunday or even Saturday. If this game was played at about 40 to 45 degrees, not much wind, and no rain or any precipitation in the forecast, I would love the other team going in to dust off the Patriots. But it just seems like they continuously get lucky. Like you play the Dallas Cowboys, one of the best offenses in football, and it's a monsoon rainstorm, freezing cold, and it's windy, pushing the rain sideways. I think they get a little bit luckier, but I also don't want to overstep what the Tennessee Titans are doing, because yes, I love what they're doing. Since they put Tannehill in, they are a legitimate offense, but also sometimes you have to temper your expectations. Since that game against Kansas City, where a couple squirrely things went their way, and a very nice win, a comeback win to beat Kansas City, they beat Jacksonville. They beat the Colts, which were dead on arrival at that point. They beat the Oakland Raiders. They lost to Houston. They lost to New Orleans. And then they dusted off a Houston team playing their second and third string starters that didn't really care about this football team. They're going to get an absolute punch from New England. And how about New England finally playing a role of saying, nobody respects us. Nobody thinks we can win when we just pencil them into the Super Bowl every single year. It's a matter of how healthy they can be on offense. Do I think that New England can win this? Of course I do. They're at home and in the playoffs. Anybody can win in that circumstance. But this is one of those games I do want to wait and see what I can get the absolute conditions at around kickoff, because if the rain is coming down, which it says light rain, maybe it's coming down in buckets. That really favors the New England Patriots game. And they started off just by saying, I'm leaning Patriots here. It's crazy because I'm the quickest one to say, knock this football team out. They're dead on arrival. And every time I look and get a second look, I'm saying, you know what? Don't leave this team for dead yet.
And we don't see anybody coming into the chat right now with Titans on their card. Alex Ramirez says Patriots will roll. Gerald Jones, New England, Tennessee, over, love it. Joe Rich Ramirez liking Patriots first half. That's available at -3, anywhere between -105 and -115, depending on where you shop. Rye Cape says I'm on the Pats. Capper John says definitely on the Pats. Alex Ramirez says Patriots will get it together. Playoff time. Wow. Drew Barrett says Tannehill and Foxborough on Saturday night. Pats will roll them. So nobody coming out saying Titans. Whale Capper, Titans, Patriots.
Yeah, this is a very rare, maybe never again have an opportunity to buy low on the Pats like you do right now. This is a very surprising line that it's not at least 6.5. This was an immediate one. Like, you raise your eyebrows when you saw the number go up, and you're like, wow, I can't believe I have value on the pass. And then you see it trickle down to 4.5, and all this Titans money came in early, and I was like, man, this is a late Christmas gift. I'm all about this, and so I'm sitting with a pretty healthy position here on the Patriots. I think there's still value at the current number. I would go as high as about -5.5 here. I'd still like the fact that you're on the right side of the key number 6. And this all does come down to Tannehill's ability to move the ball through the air. I think the Patriots will give Derrick Henry some opportunity to run and some opportunity to make plays in the running game, and they're going to focus on shutting down A.J. Brown, which they can do with their dynamic pass defense. Tannehill's kind of most successful passing skill is throwing into relatively tight windows down the sidelines where it's tough to defend. A.J. Brown has emerged as a wide receiver 1 in this league, and it's exciting to watch. But this is probably the worst possible matchup for them. I don't think in any way, shape, or form you can expect the Tannehill to have more than about 150 to 175 yards passing in this game, because there's going to be a lot of opportunities where he drops back to pass, and his number one look, there's going to be tight coverage. He's going to hold on to the ball too long. He's going to get sacked. That's kind of his MO. So I think a lot of things in this game play in favor of the Patriots defense dictating. I can't make a play on the under in this one, however, because I can entirely see some garbage time points coming into play here for this total. So I think the right move here is Patriots -5.5. Happy to lay those points with the Tom Brady and company at home, and likely their only home playoff game of the whole season.
Well, Capper, right now at Bet365, you can get the Patriots to win the Super Bowl at 12-1. 12-1 to win the AFC at 6.5-1. Do you see any value on Patriots futures?
I really don't. I have both the Chiefs and the Ravens so much higher than them. And the idea, the only path really for the Patriots to get there is they beat the Chiefs and the Texans beat the Ravens. And then the Patriots get to host the AFC title game against the Texans, and Belichick outcoaches Bill O'Brien. Like, that's the only path I can see manifesting a Patriots Super Bowl trip. And even if they get there, I think pretty much every candidate, every NFC contender is better than them. So I don't think that's a super valuable price on the Pats to go the distance. But this particular week, I think you're getting a nice value on them.
RB Fern says, I don't think it's a mistake that Tannehill's success has coincided with Henry leading the league in rushing. Patriots have to stop the run, force Tannehill to win a playoff game. Jeff Billings liking the Titans with the points. First half and first half, so full game and first half, and the Titans team total over, and the full game over. Doug Barnhouse says, don't go against the Pats in the playoffs. Tasha M liking the over with the Patriots. Dan Kelly liking the angle of Vrabel knowing Belichick. Donnie RightSide with this total here that opened up at 43.5. It's at either 44 or 44.5. If you had a free play on the total, would you try to go over it or under it?
It's kind of hard to figure out, but I certainly wouldn't be going under, because I do like what Tannehill can do, can get outside the pocket. They're going to throw the football around. They're going to push the measure, which I think will in turn push New England. But also looking at, I don't know how good Tennessee's defense actually is at this point. Look, this is a really good football team, Tennessee. You don't just make the playoffs in the NFL because you get lucky at certain instances. They're going to come to play, but it also, again, it just comes down to, Jimmy, if the playing conditions are suitable, and we're not having 20 degrees, 15 degrees, 10 degrees. It's going to be, 40 degree in that range. And if it's just a couple drops here and there that are coming down, I think there's going to be the ability to score, because I do believe in Tennessee's offense. But I think right now New England gets such, an uppercut right now. Nobody believes in their offense. I think they can move the football against the Tennessee Titans. I don't think the Tennessee Titans are going to come out and say, let's just really run the football and get away with what we've been doing really well throughout the season. And also, when you look at the game itself coming down to it, who's the best win that Tennessee has had? They got lucky with a victory. They gave up almost 550 yards of offense to the Kansas City Chiefs at home, which they won by 3. Go up and down that. Whenever they stepped up and leveled up in competition, they normally got beat. And now you're going on the road in arguably the toughest place to win in playoff football, and you're expecting them to get an outright win here. That's going to be tough.
Anthony Taglianti says Tennessee's got this. If the Pats can't beat the Dolphins at home to get the second seed, then they won't win, period. Whale Capper, what the hell happened last week against the Fish?
Man, boy, was that a no-show. I did not see that coming. I thought there was potential that the Patriots were going to even cover that number. Didn't end up playing the game, but the result was a shocker. They completely no-showed in that spot. And the Dolphins are a tough team to get up for. Like across the league, it was pretty much expected they were the worst team. And so teams kind of looked past them. And they have a very kind of a weird, chaotic passing attack that you don't necessarily have a plan A for, and it was a mismatch. And obviously, Brian Flores deserves a ton of credit for coaching his team up, getting them very prepared for that game and having a solid game plan. It was executed well, and I think to a degree, the Patriots were probably looking forward to their bye week, looking forward to maybe making a run in the playoffs. And now look here, lo and behold, they got to play on Saturday night against a tough Titans team. It was a bad result for the Pats overall. And just catastrophic for their Super Bowl chances. But I still think that overall the value manifests on them this week at 5.5.
Donnie, Jake Bell says Flores knew Belichick. Dan Kelly says, I like the angle of Vrabel knowing Belichick. What do you think of that angle they're speaking of?
It's a little bit overgrown because I think he had a little bit of a perfect storm. Also, as I said, it was a really nice day, and Fitzpatrick doesn't care about your defense. He's going to say, if you're open, I'm going to give you a chance to make a play. Maybe that doesn't happen this weekend, but just going back to the overall coaches, I don't know how well he knows him here. I mean, I'm sure he would know him a little bit better if this game was in Tennessee as opposed to being in New England, so I don't put that much stock into it here.
Well, those are the two big games Saturday. Let's move on to Sunday. Vikings Saints popping off in the morning. Total opened up at 47 and shot all the way up to 50. Pinnacle leading the charge at 50. Bet online still at 49. All the other books at 49.5. The Saints open up at -8, but we do see 7.5s creeping up. 7.5s at Bet365. You wager Heritage and 5 dimes. 7.5s on the board. Now, Vikings, Saints. Saints have the NFL's 4th best rush defense. And Dalvin Cook, although we expect him to be good to go, has to be a question mark. 144 yards rushing in his last 4 games that he actually played. They say that he is good to go. And Thielen is healthy and good to go, which means Kirk Cousins is capable of having a good football game, even though he's coming off a disastrous performance or even 2. But there's some numbers that are screaming at us. Before we even get into the Saints, the Vikings are 4-14 against the spread versus a team with a winning record. 1-4 against the spread last 5 road games versus a team with a winning record. 1-5 against the spread the last 6 games is a road underdog. And then we get over to the Saints. 28-10 against the spread their last 38 home games versus a team with the winning record. All the Saints stats are nice. And if Dalvin Cook is not capable of making it through a full game, Boone and Madison have looked okay. Saints allowed 91.3 yards per game on the year on the ground, just 78.6 yards per game on the ground over the last 3 games, just 3.9 yards per attempt. And Breeze looks rejuvenated. He's got zip on the ball. Kamara and Murray are a nice 1-2 punch. The Saints against the pass at home have allowed just 214.8 yards per game. Very, very, very exciting spot here to start our Sunday football action. Donnie, Vikings, Saints.
Fun, man. All 4. This is so much fun to talk like games of this impact and try to see which way they're going. The one thing I don't agree with really is it does have the capability of being a blowout. Would you like it better if the Saints were sitting at maybe an even 7 or less to try to take them? Because there are some things that the Vikings do, especially on defense, that can give the Saints a little bit of trouble. And then, of course, you've called it right there. If you have Diggs on one side, Thielen on one side, Dalvin Cook in the backfield healthy, they should be able to score points. But before I was ready to just jam and say, you know what? I want to nail this over under and take this over. And then you look at both of these defenses technically are top 10 in the NFL, and it is a playoff game, so some of the paces do slow down a little bit here. The one interesting thing that I want to bring up here, and this is more the future of New Orleans, they're getting no breaks here. The NFL did them a little bit of a favor, and rightfully so, by putting this game on Sunday as opposed to Saturday, because the Vikings took a bye last week. New Orleans was on the road trying to see if they can clinch up getting a bye week, which, they blew out their football team but weren't able to do that. Now sit at the 3 seed. The Saints, since I think it was week 9 or week 10 was the last time they had a bye week. They're not going to have another one. And if they do win, they're going to go into probably Green Bay in the freezing cold conditions and have to do it the hard way to get the Super Bowl. So their trek to me is probably the hardest of any team in the NFL. But getting back to this football game, I think the Saints are going to be able to score points in this game. I really do. Drew Brees is in the dome. And look, as much as you want to say about Kirk Cousins, he can get hot and he can make plays. The proof is in the pudding. The bigger the game, the smaller Kirk Cousins gets. So putting your money behind the Vikings in this game really makes it tough for me. But I would have liked it better if you could get that even 7, which obviously is not going to take place. But the one thing I do believe here, look, Minnesota's got a good defense. If Eric Kendricks is a little bit down from the middle linebacker position, that is a huge loss in stopping the running game from New Orleans. I think New Orleans scores team total. It's 28.5. I feel more comfortable with 28 or less. But if you like the 28.5, there's very rare conditions where one team scores 4 touchdowns, doesn't kick any field goals. So if you like the 28.5, they'll probably get the 30. I'm leaning towards the Saints over in this game because I think they score some points here, Jimmy.
Saints team total over. I got a sneak peek at Whale Capper's action for this weekend, and I can't wait for this breakdown. Whale Capper, tell us why the dog has value.
Well, this is the second best play of the game. The first best play was the over 44.5 on the opener. I don't know who hung that line or why. That was one of the poorest openers we've seen in the NFL this season, and it was for a freaking playoff game between two teams that we have, that have been in primetime, that have been heavily bet for a while. So that was a shocker. It's on its way up to 50. It's at 50 at some shops. I think it's probably not coming back down. And I think this is going to be a competitive game, score for score here between the Vikings and the Saints. And there are some aspects of Drew Brees' performance that I'm still not buying into. You said he has zip on the ball. You think you're seeing some more competent passing out of Drew Brees. I'm still not seeing that. I'm still seeing him opting way too often for the check down, way too often for throwing it short of the sticks and having his guys make plays, get yards after the catch. And that's a lot harder to do against the Vikings than it is against some of the other teams that they've played down the stretch. And where you can hurt the Vikings is throwing an accurate deep ball, and I'm not sure he's got it. So I'm a little lukewarm here on the Saints overall in terms of just their offense. How good they're going to look. They should be able to hang points on this team, but I'm not 100% bought into it. And I think the Vikings, on the other hand, have a decent matchup. You brought up that the Saints have been an incredible run-stopping unit this season. That's true. When they were 100% healthy, they were awesome. They are without Rankins, who is a huge run-stopping part of their defensive line. No Davenport for them in this game. Their linebacking core is nicked all across the board. So I think that what the Saints like to do in the running game will be effective against this Vikings team. And if they can get a little bit of momentum early, if they can make a couple of plays in the first half of this game and put some pressure on Drew Brees, we haven't seen him really do a very solid job of coming back from adversity. And there's been a couple of playoff performances in the last couple of years that Drew Brees just did not live up to expectations. In the front of my mind, the last time they were 8-point favorites at home against a team that was woefully less effective offensively than the Vikings was last year. Nick Foles and the Eagles strolled into the Superdome as 8-point dogs. And I put this Vikings team well above that Eagles team. And if you're going to give me 8 points with the Vikings team that I think is legitimate, they didn't look great on Monday Night Football against the Packers. That's really soured a lot of people's perception on this team. But I think they still have enough in them to be competitive. I don't love backing Kirk Cousins, but as long as I'm getting over a touchdown, I'm happy. And I think this is a competitive game that ends somewhere in the ballpark of 28-24.
Wow, very interesting. Nick Goes says, I don't see the Vikings coming back down a couple of scores. Adam Mullen says 0% chance Vikings beat the Saints, but they can keep it close. And Robert Allen liking the Vikings on the money line, which you can get from plus 309 at Pinnacle up to plus 335 at 5 dimes. 325 at BetOnline, 330 at Bookmaker. Wow. Clint Richardson says, can easily lay the points with the Saints. There has been at Pinnacle an 11-cent move towards the Vikings. Donnie RightSide, do you think you get to the window in Viking Saints?
You know what? I'm still going to say with the original point there. I think it's 7 or less. I would be really inclined to take New Orleans because I do think they win the football game. But you also have to keep in mind as well, late in that football game, That's a talented offense, and they should be able to get through the back door because you're talking about a wide margin. I mean, let's just say the game closes at 8 points here. So if they're down 14, Minnesota should be able to score and come down the stretch. And then you take a look at the New Orleans Saints being able to maybe run out the clock or don't need another touchdown. But you also want to keep in mind there are some key points here that, Whale Capper brings up with the banged upness, as I like to say, for the New Orleans Saints. Keep in mind, look at the Eli Apple, Von Bell, those guys are down. They're elite wide receivers that they've really throttled Thielen back, and now another bye week last week. He should be full go and be able to eat whoever lunch over there. And also when you're talking about some other key components in the secondary, you have everything you need to score points. And yes, Minnesota is a fast offensive team. Dalvin Cook's screen game should be electric in this game. Stephon Diggs should be able to go deep, and Kirk Cousins has a live arm we're not dealing with 20 degrees. 15-mile-an-hour winds. This is in a dome. There should theoretically be points here, even though both of these teams are ranked up higher. But sometimes it does come down to, again, when I say Kendricks, if he's healthy and ready to go in the middle, he can control a lot of the things that the Saints want to do with running the football up the field. And I do agree with Whale Capper. When you watch New Orleans, yes, they're scoring points, but these aren't electric points where you're running play action and Drew Brees is dotting I's 50 yards down the field. It's a lot of Michael Thomas. You can't guard Michael Thomas. I mean, it says it right in his Twitter name. If you could somehow slow him down a little bit, it will be interesting. But I'd more likely feel if there's going to be points in this game than not, though, Jimmy.
Wow, very interesting stuff. Whale Capper on the Vikes at +8. Donnie, everybody wants to hear you break down the closing game of the wild card weekend. Seahawks, Eagles. Seahawks, Eagles. Prince of the City says, or is asking if I'm hedging with the Russell Wilsons, a.k.a. the Seahawks, saying I should. I have not yet, but I have kind of let go of all my Philadelphia futures and was surprised. I didn't hedge, though, with the Cowboys there on Week 16, which was a good move. Seattle opening up at -1.5. There are twos on the board. There is a 2.5 at Bovada. This total opened up at 46, now down to 45.5 or 45. And again, pretty nice weather for this time of year. I mean, it's cold, but not that cold. And it's windy, but not that windy. 38 Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, 9 miles per hour. Seahawks 7-1 on the road going into Philly. Seattle lost their last 2 regular season games and now have to play on the road. Russell Wilson being spectacular, but he certainly did not look the same without a viable running game. And that's what you can say they don't have right now. Bringing in Marshawn and Turbin. Come on. Tyler Lockett, their number 1 receiver, he caught for 51 or less yards in 6 out of his last 7 games. We know, and Donnie's been talking about all year, how bad the Seahawks defense is. 27th against the pass, 22nd against the run. I mean, the offense and Russell Wilson are the Seahawks' chance. And all of a sudden, Carson Wentz is a superstar. Did not throw an interception his last 4 games. He's looking very, very good. Donnie will give us an update on Miles Sanders. He's been very good all year, dealing with the ankle injury. But Jordan Howard, Boston Scott, ready to go. Injury still a huge issue for the Eagles offense. No Deshaun Jackson, no Alshon Jeffrey. And then Zach Ertz and Nelson Aguilar are questionable. I know Donnie will have the inside information on that. And then we have the against the spread numbers for the Seahawks. 5-0 in their last 5 games against the Eagles. The Seahawks are 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 wildcard games. And they're 10-3-2 against the spread in the last 15 games following an against the spread loss. Donnie RightSide, are you backing your boys on Sunday night?
This is an awesome one. And kudos to the NFL for getting this right, because to me, these are the 2 weakest teams in the NFL playoffs, and they're going to square off against each other. So if you're looking from a positive perspective from Seattle and losing last week and not winning the division, they get the Philadelphia Eagles. And if you look from the Philadelphia Eagles perspective, they get the Seattle Seahawks. It's perfect. Both these teams think they can win. Now, having said that, Russell Wilson, to me, and again, I always say it on Twitter, and if you probably can go back since I've been on Twitter, he's worth his weight in gold. He should sit out at the end, however the season ends, and say, I want 51% ownership of this football team, or I'll never play again because it's a 4-12 team without him. They're bad on defense. I mean, Bobby Wagner's a sensational middle linebacker, maybe even Hall of Fame worthy if he has a couple more good years. He hasn't been that great. Outside of him, Jadeveon Clowney's on one leg. The secondary stinks. The offensive line stinks. They have no running backs, and they have very average wide receivers. they still should beat the Philadelphia Eagles. But now we're getting back into it. Last time they took the field in Philadelphia, you got bludgeoned in the running game. Penny was amazing in that game, over 100 yards, breaking away big play. He's gone. Chris Carson is unstoppable in that. He's gone in this game as well. Oh, no, he's gone as well. So everybody was really excited last week with Marshawn Lynch and his 15 carries for 30 yards in a cloud of dust, and you get to throw Skittles out there. He's going to be a great running back from the 1-yard line. Outside of that, he's absolutely useless. But I did like what last week when you saw Travis Homer out of Miami come in and fill that void and look like a very capable running back. That'll be tough to do. But from the first time we saw them play earlier this year, you had Jadeveon Clowney was inactive in that game. I'm not so sure even he is going to play in this game. I don't know how effective he's going to be, but also you had Lane Johnson was inactive in that first game. He's going to play in this football game. You also had an Eagles team still trying to figure things out without Deshaun Jackson obviously in the lineup, as well as Alshon Jeffrey and also Nelson Aguilar in the slot. They were all three out. They're a much better team the wide receiver position than they were in that football game. Miles Sanders, who's not practiced all week, got an injury in the last football game. He looks like he's going to go Sunday. Boston Scott, the emergence. There's a lot of positives that you could take a look at the Philadelphia Eagles in this game going up against the Seattle Seahawks. If the Seattle Seahawks had Chris Carson, it's a no-brainer. They're just bludgeoning the Eagles and Russell Wilson to make a couple plays like he usually does in this game. Early in the week, I'm saying, look, Seattle should win this football game, and I still think they should win this football game. But if Zach Ertz is going to come back, if Miles Sanders is going to play in this football game, they're going to be hell on wheels in this game. And it's hard to fly West Coast to East Coast and win. Neither one of these teams can run away. As I said, they're the two worst teams in the NFL playoffs. It's going to be a close one. If I had to put my money on it right now, probably going to roll Russell Wilson just because it's Russell Wilson. But if you get a healthy report coming in on Sunday on the Eagles, it's going to be a tough one, man.
Jake Bell says Russell wills them to victory. Levi Kressler says Wilson is made for these moments. Joe Rich says Wentz is still a bum. It will show this weekend. Billy Boxer says Seahawks have had one of the toughest schedules all season. The Eagles, on the other hand, have had a cakewalk schedule. TJ Parks hammering the under. Rye Cape says I'll probably be on the under as well. Prince of the City says that's fine. The Eagles don't have any defensive backs. Jake Bell liking Seattle. Right Cape says because so many teams have easy playoff wins in Philadelphia. RB Fern says love the Hawks. 7-1 on the road, 8-2 out of the division. Beat the Niners and lost them on a difference of a half yard. And everyone loves the Niners. Hawks being massively undervalued. Whale Capper, take it away. Seahawks, Eagles.
Yeah, I played the Seahawks here a couple of different ways. Earlier in the week, I got them on the money line when they were plus money. Even now at -1.5, I see value on Seattle. I love the matchup of their wide receiving core against the Philadelphia Eagles defensive backfield. I know that the Eagles defense definitely elevates their level of play when they're at home in these nighttime environments. But it's all based on pass rush. It's all based on having all these big bodies on the D-line that can get after the quarterback. And what we just saw with Russell Wilson against the San Francisco 49ers D-line, a comparable unit, he was able to evade the rush, move fluidly in the pocket, and with 7, 10, 8 seconds, the pocket crumbling, about to get sacked. What does he do? He makes a 15-yard completion look easy. And I think that there's going to be a healthy dose of Russell Wilson passing in this game that is going to elevate the Seattle Seahawks total points scored, which is going to really put a lot of pressure on Carson Wentz making his first ever playoff start with virtually no weapons going for him. Even if Ertz is out there, he looks pretty limited with the way he was, way he's kind of, stumbled down the stretch here, which means it's going to be all, the Dallas Goedert show, the Miles Sanders show, the Boston Scott show. Even against a very poor defense in Seattle, I don't know that these guys are going to be able to go score for score with Russell Wilson and company. I think that really Seattle in that San Francisco game made a couple of adjustments at halftime that I think if they can continue to play that way that they played in the second half against the Niners, they are a team no one wants to play in the NFC. Russell Wilson is the best quarterback in the NFC. And I think the Seahawks get a win in Philadelphia, although I don't think it's especially comfortable. I really I just made a case for Minnesota and the points and Seattle laying the points here. But at the same time, I think both of these games are going to be relatively close compared to the number that's hanging out there right now. An Eagles-Saints teaser isn't the worst play on the board on Sunday. Both of those are in the Wong teaser zone. And I think this one ends relatively high-scoring affair. We'll say, 20, 24-23, something along those lines, with Seattle eking out a victory. Actually, 26-23. Sorry, I forgot I laid 1.5 points. 26-23, where the Eagles come flying home and come close to getting the backdoor cover, or come close to coming up with the comeback win, but can't quite get it done. Basically, every Seattle game we've seen this season has been super dramatic, super fun to watch. I expect this one will be no different, given that the environment at the Link is so exciting and so full of energy. So should be a fun contest. Perfect way to end the wild card weekend. And Seattle moves on for a rematch with the San Francisco 49ers.
Which we all want to see. There's no doubt about that. Future bets or no future bets. Joe Rich Ramirez just called that a perfect breakdown. We should not have him say another word then. Let's just leave it at that. Perfect breakdown. Prince of the City says, me and Andrew finally agree, because we know Prince of the City fades everything that his hometown Philadelphia is offering him. Jeff Billings likes the Eagles with the points, the money line, the over, and the Eagles team total over, and Eagles first half. Bullish on these Eagles. Bullish on these Eagles. And then we had some very interesting stuff. Clint Richardson, largest strength of schedule difference between two teams in NFL playoff history. So Clint is taking Seattle. Let's talk about this total. Adam Olin says, I'm stuck on this total. It opened at 46. You can still get it there at Pinnacle, although there's been quite a massive move to the under in that, at least 11 cents. 45.5 or even 45 everywhere else. We got a final score from the Whale Capper, 26-23. We got a final score from Drew Barron, 21-20. It says Seattle wins. Seattle minus 1.5, and Eagles moneyline bettors lose. Donnie RightSide, over or under 45.5 in Seahawks Eagles.
Playoff games outside probably would lean more towards the under. I mean, Wentz and the Eagles have been really fantastic over the past couple weeks on offense. But then again, you could see the level up of competition. The Washingtons of the world stink. You know, the teams that they've beaten up on, so to speak. Even last week against the Giants, that's a nice cut. You don't have very many weapons on offense. You're still able to score. It'll be a little bit different here because both teams are going to come out and establish the run. Jordan Howard, who didn't play in the first game versus Seattle, going to be active for this football game. So we'll see if they sort of lean on the running game. And when you're coming from a Seattle perspective here, do you really want to just go 5 wide and open it up and see what you can do with Russell Wilson? Or you're going to say, you know what, I'm not so sure that Philadelphia Eagles can score all that much, so let's play it a little bit closer to the vest. I lean on the under in this type of environment in this game, Jimmy.
Wow. Very, very, very exciting spots. Jake Bell has the over 46. That's Jake Bell's spot. Brooklyn Funk Project going on the over 5. Looks of Disbelief by Pete Carroll in this game. And we have Robbie Tagaloa, the Samoan Thunder, joining us. All right, let's talk Super Bowl champions. In fact, let's talk who is going to be in the Super Bowl. I know this is a tricky question. Donnie RightSide, who do you see representing the AFC and NFC respectively in the Super Bowl this season?
If we take a look at the NFC, I've been on the 49ers for a while, and I'm going to stay on the 49ers. And if my Eagles are lucky enough to beat the Seattle Seahawks, anything short of minus 21.5, I'm going to be all over the 49ers to annihilate my Eagles. So I'll keep it there. They're going to be rested and healthy, maybe getting Quan Alexander back when they thought he was lost here. For some reason, these pectoral surgeries between J.J. Watt and Quan Alexander, I don't know where they improved from being out a year to only being out 8 weeks now. So if he comes back, that will be a much-needed boon for that linebacking position. But when you're home and you're rested and you have the bye week, it's a major advantage. If we're just starting NFC, it's the San Francisco 49ers to me. I think they're far and away the best team in the NFC, and they're at home.
All right, let's do it. Let's stick with go NFC first, then AFC, and we'll know what so representing the NFC is the San Francisco 49ers. Who represents the NFC for you, Whale Capper?
So first of all, to answer Johnny's question, pectoral surgery time can be reduced with deer antler spray. Ray Lewis taught us all that about 6 years ago. It's deer antler spray, Donnie, if you need it.
Right.
The NFC goes through a couple of inexperienced teams and a couple of teams that aren't great, which to me I think opens up an enormous amount of value across the field. The top of the betting market is obviously the Niners for good reason. They have home field advantage, but Shanahan never coached a playoff team as a head coach. Jimmy Garoppolo never taken a playoff start in his life. So the fact that these guys are playoff debutantes, it scares me off of backing the Niners, especially at a number that I think is inflated. You go down the list. Are the Packers good enough to win 2 games and get to the Super Bowl? Not really, in my opinion. Aaron Rodgers has been horrible this season. He is not playing at a level that is good enough to beat some of the tough competition in the NFC. So as we continue to tick down, does that mean the Saints are the Saints clearly are the best team in the NFC? They have the toughest path, as Donnie noted earlier. They have to go up against a legitimate Minnesota team and get a win at home. That's not going to be easy. They go on the road into outdoor, cold weather environment against the Packers. Do not love them in that spot. That is going to be a very, very difficult game for them to win. And assuming they get those 2 wins, what is your prize then? You get to go to San Francisco, assuming San Francisco, gets the victory. That's 2 tough trips back to back. So I'm not really seeing value in the Saints. They have a very difficult path. Eagles, we just talked about. I think their playoff lives are very short-lived, given that I think the Seahawks pick up this W in Philly on Sunday. And then, we talk about the Seahawks aren't this great team. They're not, they don't have a good defense. They don't have a good offensive line. They have lots of holes. Their running backs stink. Like, all that is true, but they still have Russell Wilson, who's the best quarterback in the NFC. And I think it's entirely possible that if Seattle goes to San Francisco, that is a 50-50 coin. That is a coin flip. We saw them play 2 games this season, and both of them were effectively ties, right? Like, the first game literally should have ended in a tie if Kyle Shanahan pulls his head out of his butt late in that game and just kind of runs down the clock. That game ends in a tie. And then they came within a micron of flipping, who won in the Sunday night game, week 17. So that is a 50-50 matchup. Almost certainly Seattle's going to be like 6-point dogs. I'm going to back them in that spot because I think they absolutely can win a third matchup with the San Francisco team. And then it's a question of, okay, well, if the Green Bay has taken care of business at home in cold weather against Drew Brees, that opens up a path then for whoever wins that San Francisco-Seattle game. And if it's Seattle, then I think they have a realistic shot of making the Super Bowl. Right now, they're about 14-1 in the market to win the NFC. And I think that's the only bet I placed this week besides betting on any of these games. I think 14-1 is absolutely ludicrous. I make the price for Seattle closer to 9-1, and I think they have a decent shot.
Wow. Clint Richardson says, Whale said at the beginning of the year, look out for the Ravens. I got Ravens, San Francisco in the Super Bowl at 220-1. Ravens, San Francisco. Wow, Clint. For me, I have futures on the Saints. I got them late. I put 250 on the Saints at plus 250 to win the NFC and plus 500 to win the Super Bowl. So I'm going to be betting on the Niners, and I'm going to be rolling over the cash. I know there's not a lot of rollover when you get a bye, but and then that first game, I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to handle that first game, but I see the Saints, if they can get out healthy enough, out of Green Bay healthy enough, being the team to beat. But if it's San Francisco playing them, I will be betting on San Francisco in that game as a hedge in that spot. So I, at this point, even though they have a very, very, very difficult route, I'm going to be taking the Saints right now out of the NFC. Let's move over to the AFC. Donnie, RightSide, you've got it started with the Niners. Who will the Niners be playing?
Yeah, I mean, it's been chalky, on my side here. But when you take a look at the NFC playoffs, theoretically, again, outside of my Philadelphia Eagles, you could probably make a case for the other 5 teams to maybe make a run at least to get to the NFC title game. Look, and when you're trying to find value in the AFC, like, who are you going to take as a the hardest spot to knock off a top 2 team is right after their bye weeks and after you played a slugfest in the wild card round. So if we're going to say, let's just say the chalk holds out and the Texans win and the Patriots win, honest to goodness, I don't see a path for New England to go into Kansas City rested and ready and beat them unless, again, you get 15-degree weather, 40-mile-an-hour winds, and a ton of snow where they can slow the game down and just play defense. And the same thing goes for the Baltimore Ravens. If we're going to get Mark Ingram, who's going to have 3 weeks off to get that calf ready, I don't see the Texans going in and knocking off the Ravens. So I'm going to keep it chalk here, and I'm excited. And I hope this chalk holds because the 49ers and the Baltimore Ravens will be a sensational Super Bowl rematch of a couple years ago.
That power outage at halftime. That's about as enjoyable of a Super Bowl that I can remember. Really, really, really fun. All right, we have a Niners-Ravens Super Bowl from Donnie RightSide. Whale Capper, take it away. You didn't really give us the AFC NFC winner in that last one. Although you said that you bet Seahawks. What is your prediction on the Super Bowl final?
Well, I think Ravens. I'm going to stick with my boys here. I have a nice ticket from preseason on the Ravens to win the AFC. They have home field throughout. I think they have some tactical matchup advantages against the Chiefs. The AFC, in my opinion, is a two-team race. I think you can literally, like, if the biggest shock in all of the playoffs from here on in is if we do not get a Baltimore KC AFC title game, I will be floored. And in that matchup, I favor the Ravens. Not enough to go put more money down now on the Ravens to win the AFC, but I think across the prices there is still some value. I would make them about a 65% chance to win the AFC, and the odds would imply like something like 55 or 60. So Ravens, let's go. Lamar Jackson, ride all the way to the Super Bowl, and I agree that the Niners probably have the most likely path. I agree with you that the Saints are the best team, but I'm sticking with I'm hoping for a little Russell Wilson magic for the 14-1 late play here on them to come home, and we get a Seahawks-Ravens Super Bowl. Also, by the way,
yeah,
most enjoyable Super Bowl over the last couple of years. Don't you remember the Eagles Patriots?
That threw me into a dark depression, that game. Now, I felt good seeing Donnie get his win, and Donnie's such a class act. He didn't make me feel bad. It was my own wagers that made me feel bad and put me into a whole.
You went big on the under?
No, I was on the Patriots. I didn't take the under. That would have been devastating. But not only that, I had oh God, you want a worse bet than the under? I had punt props in that game. Punt props in that game. I don't
Was
think,
there a punt?
I don't think you could. I don't think there was a worse bet in the history of Super Bowls than my punt props. I lost all my props in that game. It was just, oh God, let's not go back there. Let's not. Although it was wonderful seeing Donnie watch his team win the Super Bowl against the best villain in sports, being the Patriots. And Donnie in no way Donnie was a class act. And even though I was spiraling into depression, he was a shining light that day.
Are we sure Donnie's really from Philly?
I want to see how the Ravens handle the pressure, because there's going to be a lot of pressure, and we have not seen this Ravens squad deliver the goods under this pressure. And I am on the Chiefs to upset them and to win the Super Bowl this year. This Kansas City Chiefs defense came together in a giant way in the last few weeks of the season, and I'm very excited about that game. I'm not sure how I'm going to handle it at this point because I have the futures. Now, the futures are kind of weak sauce because there's just $100 at plus 375, $100 at plus 800. So, that's obviously not enough. Dan Kelly was rooting for just 5 more punts in the last 3 minutes of that Super Bowl game. Yeah, that was a disaster. There you have it. So I've got a Chiefs Saints Super Bowl won by the Kansas City Chiefs. We shall see how it all bangs out. Donnie and I have yet to make official looks here on this card for the Audible. I've not made any bets on this card yet, but the Whale Capper has come through. Rafa, can we put up the Whale Capper's action for Wild Card Weekend? Whale Capper coming off another successful season. Buffalo, Houston under 44 minus 102. And the more he broke that down, the more interesting I thought about it. Until Donnie came back after his breakdown, that gave me a bit of hesitation. But with the Bills scoring points. But I think you got a great number there. Patriots minus 5.5, Vikings plus 8, Seahawks minus 1.5. Jeff Billings liking a Ravens Saints Super Bowl. RB Fern, Chiefs beat the Packers. Chiefs beat the Packers is RB Fern's look. Nilo saying 49ers aren't healthy enough and he's not feeling them. Brooklyn Funk Project says Houston-Baltimore would be a great AFC game. Levi Kressler on a Seahawks-Chiefs Super Bowl. Nilo on a Patriots-Seahawks Super Bowl. A lot of Seahawks love here. A lot of Seahawks love it. Ray Rack says KC is league's best defense recently. I think they win the Super Bowl. Nico says Niners D was exposed in the last 4 weeks. Ray Rack's liking a Saints-Chiefs Super Bowl with me, but says Dark Horse is the Texans. There we have it. This is a lot of fun. I'm so happy we are going to be doing these shows throughout the playoffs. We are moving to Wednesdays. Moving forward starting next week, Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern. 4 p.m. Eastern. Donnie RightSide, my man, any final words for these great cappers in the chat and those watching from home?
No, thanks for sticking around for us now in the playoffs, and we'll condense it. And you see, like, we're just a couple of guys that really like football. No matter if there's a 12 or 14 game slate, we could talk for an hour. If there's a 4-game slate, and as you'll see, as it gets better, 2 games, 1 game, we'll still talk an hour and have some fun doing it. So thanks for sticking along once again on the Audible, one of my single favorite shows to do because it's just a bunch of guys talking football with the chat box thrown in. So thanks again. There's a lot more to come. And yeah, we'll hashtag it up. We'll have some picks for these games. I'm excited for the playoffs. The one thing, Jimmy, real quick here, heading to the Super Bowl, if I can just not cap a Patriots Super Bowl, if I don't have to go through 2 weeks of that and then watch and listen to Crazy Train as they run out of the tunnel and just all that, it will be a perfect playoff scenario, but we'll see if that comes true.
And we're not sure exactly what we're doing for the Super Bowl down here yet, but we are going to be doing something. So I would love it if we get a chance to hang with you guys again this year. Whale Capper, great to have you back on the show, my friend. Any last words for these great cappers?
Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Always appreciate the interaction. Think you guys have valuable opinion and love to integrate some of the thoughts from the chat box into my own handicap for as we go through these weeks. And one final prediction I'll leave you with, not only will you not have to worry about handicapping a Tom Brady Patriots Super Bowl this year, Donnie, I got a funny feeling that Saturday night's game is going to be Tom Brady's last game starting in Foxborough. The writing seems to be on the wall that he would like to make an exit from what the mess that they've given him as far as a receiving core in New England. And I think even if you hate the Patriots, I think take a little time and enjoy sort of the spectacle that the Patriots put together on Saturday and likely his last home start.
Wow. A little peek into this very dark future. But then we get to watch Tom Brady throw his kids off cliffs. So there is still some positives there.
And kiss them.
Kiss him on the mouth. Absolutely right, Donnie. How did I forget that? G-Sauce says fake.
Are the rumors not true that he's moving down to Costa Rica and co-hosting Betting with the Bag?
Oh man, I'm on the lookout for a co-host. I would rather work with Giselle, but we'll break that down. We will break that down. Dan Kelly says, "From your mouth to God's ear," Whale Capper. From Dan Kelly. Man, what a treat it is to roll with you guys. On behalf of Donnie RightSide, the Whale Capper, Rafa here on the ones and twos, everybody at Sportsbook Review, we know we have no show without these great cappers in the chat. Dan Kelly, Bookie Lover Q, Canas Cat, Needlo, G-Sauce, Prince of the City, Clint Richardson, Nick O, Deer Slayer, Ski, Ray Rax, Jojo Rich. What a great group. RB Fern. Thank you guys so much. Jeff Billings. We have nothing without you guys. Let's have a big, profitable wild card. I know I need it. This has just been a horror show of a season for me, but it's not over yet, and I will fight on. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.